So, hi, Michelle.
Hello.
I am here with Michelle Turbide, a very good friend of mine, who has agreed to open up this series I want to do, a very casual series where we're talking about the relationship between art and healing. Um, so, thank you for being here with me, Michelle, to
My
begin this whole
pleasure.
thing. Because Michelle knows the backstory, and that is that I have been wanting to do this series for some months now, and I keep putting it off. And so finally I said, well, if you're going to do it, you got to do it. So here we are, starting as we are.
Start where you can, that's all.
That's right. so, Michelle, just before we begin chatting a little bit, if you want to just kind of tell people your relationship to both art and healing, or one or the other, introduce yourself.
Yeah. So, let's see. Let's start? I've always been an artist, I think. And, you go through phases of forgetting who you are and remembering who you are in life. And I think it was about the time right before I turned 30. I came back to art, and it was over 10 years ago now. And I came back because I just felt like life wasn't quite complete and I was looking for something. I've always been a seeker by nature. And I came back into it and started taking art classes and dabbling here and there. And then I found intuitive art and started reading up on that and studying that and practicing that. And even with that, I think my process has gone through cycles of going into the intuitive world and then sort of going into art as products versus product process and kind of fluctuating back and forth. But over the last 5 or 6 years, really intuitive art has been my base. And I'm also a psychotherapist by day. So I include a lot of artistic processes in my healing practice there. And I have, over the last couple of years, studied more expressive arts, particularly intermodal expressive arts of using art and music and sound and poetry, writing, different forms that can tap into one another and sort of continue to deepen the process. And so that's kind of where I'm at. In the last couple of years, I've been blogging and kind of sharing more about my process and getting a little more free about what I share in my process. And yeah, I guess that's where I am.
Perfect. I love that. And the reason I wanted to bring in this whole series with you is you're kind of like, for me, one of the poster child for this whole artist healer notion that I keep playing with, and since I went through a very similar thing as you, and that was moving. I've always been an artist, but moving in with my art and back from my art. So forgetting and remembering again and again. And this last time I remembered, I would say I'm not going to forget. It was very,
Exactly.
yeah, it
This
was,
time I'm holding it like
yeah,
this.
yeah, very pivotal, and especially with the online world, what it is, and the potential that that offers. When I came back to art this time and really realized that I've probably been an intuitive artist my whole life, I just hadn't recognized it that way. Um, and I really started to see that people that were drawn to intuitive art, for instance, or expressive arts, are people who are very much interested in the process. And that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those people are very deeply involved with or very interested in the healing process as well.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if you could maybe just speak to us what just comes to you today about like the similarities between the creative process and the healing process as you've experienced it yourself and maybe as you've witnessed it too.
Yeah. You know, I think it's pretty similar to the work I do with my clientele as a therapist, and also with myself, because I think even at a young age, I was sort of a deep thinker, and reading books that were not for kids, and really looking at exploring. And I think that is the creative process right there, is just being willing to open it up and check it out and go into the unknown. And I think that's what scares a lot of people about the creative process, because there is a lot of unknown and it sort of taps into a deeper part of the senses than just the mind, and it's more powerful, I
Mm-hmm.
think.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in the process of working with, as a therapist, really it's holding space. It's holding space and just allowing things to be what they are, kind of mirroring that, reflecting that, exploring that, reframing that. And I think that that's exactly what the creative process does. It's more than just a tool. I think some people might call it a tool, but to me, it's an experience. It's an experience of a mirror that is held up for you, where you can see a little bit of it, you can see all of it, you can see what you're ready to see at that moment, and then when you go back to it later on, you might see something new and different. So it's a process, really, you know.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love the way that you distinguish it as an experience over a tool, and it makes me think that it's a very proactive way of choosing to be a watcher of yourself, a witness to yourself.
Exactly.
And that's the power in it, I find.
And it's daunting at times. And I think, those times where I'm procrastinating and I say, oh, I'm so busy, I just don't have time. And I do, I can always put aside 10 minutes to do something, whatever it is. And so then you check in with yourself. Well, what is it really? And it's I'm not ready to look at something, or I'm just feeling sort of uncomfortable and I don't know where that's coming from or what it is. But when you use the creative process to work through that, it comes out and you're able to hold it in a way that doesn't feel so frightening or intimidating. It's gentler than that.
Mm-hmm. I love also the way that you just highlighted that idea that when we say to ourselves, like, I don't have the time, or even with procrastination, that too can be part of the process.
It is, yeah.
Part of us moving towards something, but at a pace that is more nurturing or more healthy to the way we're going to be able to really process and take in what it is that's going to come out through us when we do take that time.
Mm-hmm.
I have found in my own healing journey with the creative process that to be very true. And I used to be very, very hard on myself about procrastinating with my creative process even. And now I find that if I honor that with a little bit more gentleness, and realize that when I do come to the canvas or my art journal, that what I need to see is going to be there. Mm-hmm. And that it's okay to nurture myself in other ways as well. And that can be equally part of the creative process, whether I get to the art journal today or I go walk in the woods and fill up that way,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I think rest is a part of the creative process. And we go through those cycles of, I have weeks where I'm just painting and art journaling like crazy and I can't stop. And then other weeks where I don't feel inspired to do it at all. But I'm doing other things that feed that process. I might be going out for a walk in the woods. I might be spending time with family. I might be watching the sunset. And that's all fodder for the creative process as well, because it kind of goes in that circular rhythm. And you can't always be producing 100% of the time. I just don't think that our bodies could sustain that either. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those, I find it to be one of those paradoxes, because you get the inspiration from the rest, and then you also get the inspiration from the doing, it's amazing. It's,
Yeah.
So what are, just if you could maybe just touch on even briefly, just maybe some themes that you find showing up in because you're devoted to your creative practice.
Yeah.
And those are the type of people I want to have these chats with. You live this as a way of moving through your life and self-awareness and your own spiritual growth and that. So what are some of the strong themes maybe that you notice in your practice currently?
Well, over the last year, I've been toying with the ancestors and this just connections to source. I'm still not quite figuring out what that is. I don't know if I need to name it or label it, but there's sort of this tribe that keeps showing up. And if you look back over the last 2 or 3 years, every once in a while I'm like looking at an old painting. Oh, there it is again. There's that piece that keeps showing up. And so over the summer, I really, I just gave into it. I surrendered to it. Here's these things that keep showing up, and I'm really just going to devote to exploring that. And that was really amazingly healing for me this summer. So I think this idea of connection, that we're connected to this line of women that kind of all goes back to the same place. So that's a huge theme for me right now. And, I guess you could call it the feminine divine, source. I think of it as spirit. And through that, I received sort of these messages, and I don't know if in the beginning I thought I was just making it up in my head, but as you go through the process and you sort of hear voices or hear words or just feel thoughts, they're exactly what I need in that moment. And so that's been a big theme for me this year.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
I feel in your approach and the way you've described it a very sort of feminine type wisdom, even in the way that you said, "Hey, these images keep showing up for me,
Yeah.
and I'm feeling something when they do, and so I'm going to devote to that
Yeah.
and see what it is that I can find in that exploration."
Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful and powerful.
Yeah.
Love
The
that.
other theme that's been coming up is snake. Last year was the year of snake for me, and it just showed up everywhere. And so transformation has been big, shedding and growing into and shedding and growing into. So that's another theme that's been coming up as well, which I think is so closely connected to the feminine.
Absolutely. And snake is a powerful
Hmm.
powerful force to work with.
Yeah.
It can be both love and hate type relationship simultaneously. I was born in the year of the snake
Oh, were
myself,
you?
so it's one that I work with off and on all the time.
Yeah.
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 Oh, very cool. So, just to before we wrap up today, what I'm going to ask everybody in this series is also, how do you define healing today?
I've thought a lot about that, and I don't think there's any clear cut definition because I think it's different for everyone. And I've thought, is a person healing? Is an experience healing? What is healing? Does it come from within? Does it come from without? And the only thing that really rings true to me is it's a process. It's a circle, because healing happens in waves, and it might happen with different people, different mentors, different experiences. So, if I have a healing experience with you as a friend, I might say you're a healing person, but there's more to it than that. There's the relationship, there's the time and space, there's the holding of our energy together. So, to me, it's really a process. I guess that's the short answer. Yeah.
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 That's pretty much what I keep coming back to inside myself at this season of my life too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love
It's
that.
love that it's a process that keeps going. It's not, you don't heal and then it's over. You
Right.
have an experience that is traumatic and you heal and it's over. You continue to process that. You continue to heal from that in different ways. And I think that that's a good thing, because if we just had something and it's done and it's over, then it just seems so, it's just not deep enough for me,
I agree, and I think that's a pivotal distinction point that has been huge in my interest in this particular conversation. Is
Yeah.
that it's very easy for us to want to equate healing with curing, for
Yeah.
instance, or
Yeah.
fixing even. Um, and it's a very different thing. And I reference this a lot in my own blog posts, but I think I learned very distinctly in hospice care when I saw people dying, literally hours and minutes from death, yet still in a state of incredible healing
Yeah.
within themselves. I really began to realize that there's a huge difference and that it is a process that transcends, notions of physicality and that as well. And then,
And it's interesting because as I've been sort of working with these ideas of the ancestors and this lineage, and it feels to me like healing can go back generations. What we do now it can heal things for people that aren't here, that for that lineage.
yes.
Like we've sort of inherited things that we're working through for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I just kind of had this image flash in my mind of us as women and like tending homes and how it's often like, we're sweeping up from the things that have been
Yeah.
and the events in that we've held with people, the memories we've made, and
Yeah.
simultaneously, something's baking in the oven. We're preparing for the next, coming of and the next event and the next memory to be made.
That's such a beautiful image. I love that.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Michelle. This is just beautiful, and I'm so excited to get to start this series, and then I'm starting with you, my sweet friend. So,
I'm honored. I appreciate it.
all right. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks.